Hey everyone, this is YouTube Vids, and this is the Ohio COVID-19 update for April 22nd, 2020. So as you can see, we got our nice little PowerPoint slide up here, everyone. And again, we're going to continue to use this format. I actually find this very awesome. So let's start with the numbers as we always do, because that is the most interesting part, I think, for everyone, including myself. So as of today, we've executed 97,998 tests. So Ohio is getting close to 100,000 tests overall, which is good. We're at least making progress in the right direction. The positive cases is now at 14,117. The daily tests for the day were 3,759. So over the course of this week, we've maintained anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 tests, which is great. This is probably the first time, actually, when looking back at the numbers, this is probably the first time in a little couple weeks that we've actually managed to maintain this level of number of tests. So that's good, and hopefully we can keep that up. All right, so looking at the other chart that was starting to look like it was getting out of hand, this is actually looking a lot better now. So as you recall, over the weekend, or close to before over the weekend, we spiked up with these high number of tests, positive tests that we had per day. As you can see, as of today, we dropped back down to 300 and just an increase of 392 positive tests today compared to the past several days. So again, I explained this in the last video on Monday, but they claimed the reason for the spike was because of the number, because they went through and tested all the prisons in Ohio, and there was just a surge in positive tests. Remember, they said in one prison 73% of people tested positive, and they attributed the spike to that, not necessarily the fact that certain labs had backlogs. They didn't attribute it to that. They just said it was because of the prison stuff. So whatever. Either way, even if it was attributed to the backlog, what matters at this point is that we had that kind of temporary peak, and now we went back down. Now, I will just say the general analysis behind this is going to be going forward. I think we should expect to continue to see stuff like this happen. So even though, there's kind of this claim that like we've hit this plateau and we should hope to see it start going down, I don't think we can hope for that anytime soon. And the only reason why I say that is because as they continue to open up the state, and as we continue to be able to test more people, that number is going to fluctuate. That's just the way, this is going to be our reality for the next, months to come. I mean, so I don't know. I don't think there's reason to be alarmed when you have a spike every single time, other than it just tells you that, like, hey, all of a sudden there was a certain area that got tested, and there just happened to be a bunch of people that tested positive in that area. And so it's just something that we're just going to have to live with, and we shouldn't always freak out at the numbers, but it is kind of alarming, and it was the first time that we'd seen it. So even for me, I was a little freaked out, but we can't freak out about it all the time, because it's just something that we're going to have to just come to expect as time goes forward. And really what matters is how the state ends up handling those situations. Now, as you can see, the deaths obviously are increasing, which makes sense because, again, as more people get tested and as time goes on, and the people who got tested, 4 weeks ago, they may have not won their battle with COVID-19, and so therefore, they passed away, and that's very unfortunate. The one thing I do want to point out, though, just to make sure everyone's clear about this, the number of deaths on here is actually, that's a cumulative number. So that's just showing the increase per day, that the deaths are going up. That is not the number of deaths for that given day. So the deaths per day, we're around like 50 or so deaths per day. So right now we're at 610 total deaths in the state of Ohio. So it's not 610 deaths today. So I just want to make that absolutely clear. Whereas the orange, the actual cases, that is the number of cases for that day. So the numbers have different meanings, and the measure is different. Just to want to make sure that's clear to everyone. All right, so let's move on to the talking points. So I have talking points from the 21st and 22nd, since I hadn't recorded a video. This is my first video in a couple of days. So the first thing is that on the 21st, Mike DeWine announced that a new reagent was approved by the FDA. He talked about it. I talked about it on Monday, I believe, actually. And on Tuesday, so basically the update on Monday was he got a call from someone from the FDA after making some statements or making some comments over the weekend or late last week. So the one of the heads of the FDA called him and said, like, hey, we're just working through some detail and then we should be able to get your approval. So as of Tuesday, they had the approval, which is great. So that allows Ohio to expand testing capacity in larger labs. Before, again, there was only so much they could test because of the amount of reagent they had available and the types of reagent and the machines. And there's all these different kind of machines that they had, but then not all of them were compatible with a certain version of the reagents to be able to do the tests. And so now that they've allowed them to expand the ability to use different reagents with different testing equipment, that allows Ohio to complete more tests in the lab, or in the bigger labs at least, the ones that can support it. So now you just don't have just a bunch of equipment sitting around that can't do anything because of the reagent. All right, so the next point that was made on Tuesday was they're targeting mid-May to see an improvement in the ability to complete more daily tests. And again, they have an update today that they talked about, so I'll get to that. They added two former Ohio governors. I think this was actually a great move. DeWine mentioned, and again, it seems like he's not too proud to ask for help, which is good. So this problem is huge, and it goes to show that he's trying to get all the minds that he can think of that would make sense and would have a concern for the state, especially trying to get all those people together to help him make good decisions, or have them help him come together with and create teams and provide suggestions to how he moves through this whole crisis. And so he had two former governors. I remember one was Bob Taft, I believe it was, if I remember the name correctly. I can't remember who the other one was, but they were two former Ohio governors, and their focus has been on expanding and maximizing our testing capacity. And we'll talk more about that in the update from today. And the last point they had for the 21st was that of the people tested in prisons, 39% of the people that were tested there did not show symptoms of having the virus. And so the reason why I wanted to make this point, and the reason why the doctor brought this up as well that day, was because there's still a lot of people that don't believe that this thing is real. And again, if you really honestly believe that, then I think you missed a class here or there. Maybe you cut class too many times in school, or logic just fails you for some reason. And again, hopefully I didn't insult anyone if you're watching this video, but this is the reality. This thing is real. But the whole point here was that almost 40% of the people who tested positive weren't showing signs of having symptoms. And so you can be a carrier. This goes to show you can be a carrier, but not actually be suffering because of it. So this thing is real, whether you want to believe it or not. Anyways, moving on. Let's move on to the updates from today. So the updates from today were pretty good. So they talked about the elective surgeries today. And so one of the things that the governor and Dr. Acton brought up was that they said they've been told stories over the past weeks that hospitals were turning away people for elective surgeries and procedures that they probably shouldn't have turned away. They said they were just really bad stories. They didn't go into any detail as to what those stories were, but they said that, obviously it comes down to the hospitals making certain decisions, and that they didn't agree with certain decisions that certain hospitals were making and the people that they turned down, or the type of elective surgeries and procedures they turned down. So forthcoming, they'll make sure it's very clear, but they're saying that they've asked these hospitals to look at the procedures and surgeries that were previously scheduled, that were basically cast aside to make room for COVID patients. They said they got to look through their list of those elective surgeries or procedures and consider that those that would impact the quality of life someone would be living, they need to go back through and discuss those with those patients and consider whether or not having those surgeries now makes sense, or procedures. now makes sense. They said that, if someone's quality of life is going to be terrible unless they have those procedures or the surgery, then the hospital needs to try to do things to make sure that people are going to live comfortably and not have to suffer for an extended period of time because of COVID-19. Now, with that said, they said, okay, you go back to your books, start calling up your patients. Hey, do you really, we think that you could probably come in and get this surgery now or this procedure done now. But by the way, just be aware that if you come into our hospital, just know that there's the risk that you could possibly contract COVID-19 while you're here. So they said, they'd have to make sure the patients are warned ahead of time that you could contract the virus while you're in the hospital, even though the hospitals can go through as many precautions as they want. Again, there's not 100% guarantee that you won't contract it. So that's the trade-off, obviously, of being allowed to come in and have your surgery or procedure done. They announced a new COVID care hotline established for the state of Ohio, and the responsibility of that hotline is to take calls related to people who are in need of mental and social help. So they did publish a number. This number 1-800-720-9616, and it is available daily 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And they said after 8 p.m. it transitions over to some type of suicide prevention hotline. So I'm assuming that if you're calling after that late at night, that they're assuming that you are in a very desperate need of help and need to be talked off a ledge, essentially. But again, the idea here is this is just for anyone. They didn't say it was limited to anyone. It just said, look, everyone's trying to find ways to deal with the mental and social anxiety that comes with dealing with this virus and the impact it's had on our economy and on people's jobs and the way they live their life. And this is certainly true because I feel the impact of this every day myself personally. But you have a hotline to be able to call to discuss those things. And then the people on the other end are responsible for, hey, maybe you should try this, maybe you should try this, or maybe you seem like you're in really need of help and they need to refer you to someone else to talk to. They're going to they said the people on the other line are supposed to be qualified professionals and should be able to help kind of guide you through or coach you through some things to try to get through it. So it's not just some random hotline with some random dude that's going to answer your call. These are actually certified, qualified professionals on the other line that are suited to take your call. So if you are one of those people in need of such, help, be sure to call this number. It sounds like these people should really be able to help you. And if you really feel like you need the help, then be sure you get the help you need, because everyone needs someone to talk to at this point throughout all this. The next thing is that there's related to the daily testing. So Governor DeWine mentioned today, which this may prompt me to have a video on this tomorrow. I'm not really sure. It depends on how big the update really is. But he's saying that there's going to be an announcement tomorrow as it relates to the in-depth testing and contract tracing that we're going to need to move forward. So this is basically okay, how do we ramp up the amount of tests that we're doing daily? How do we test more people? And then when someone is found to be positive, how do we mobilize? What are we doing to mobilize? How many people do we have available to mobilize to try to figure out who this person came in contact with and be able to test them? And then the people those people came in contact with. If you watch any of the White House press briefings, they've talked about this in recent days as well. But the idea is just that you need huge staff, you need huge teams in order to do contact tracing quickly. And so again, these are the things that the two former governors were responsible for helping with. And so Mike DeWine said today that they should have something to present tomorrow, and he feels like, it's going to be big. And with that being said, the governor said he is far more optimistic about this situation and preparedness for this situation today than he's ever been throughout this whole crisis and everything leading up to today. So if he's feeling optimistic, then I feel like that gives us a reason to at least start feeling optimistic. Now, granted, he knows what the plan is. He just said that as of today, there's nothing set in stone There was nothing signed, sealed, and ready to deliver to anyone at this point, but he said that it sounds like after tomorrow they should be at that point, or at least really close to it, where then he can at least announce what that is. And so I'm very, that makes me at least optimistic for what we might hear tomorrow from the 2 p.m. Press conference. Those are all the updates that I had for today, guys. I realize this is the longer video, but again, without doing this every day, there's just a lot more information to provide and a lot more in terms of updates and substance. So hopefully, this has all been beneficial for you. And again, I saved you from watching probably 3 hours of press conference, and I condensed it down to like 15 minutes or so. So thank you for everyone who watched this video. I appreciate it very much. If there's anything you guys think I can do to better the content I'm putting in these videos, be sure to leave me comments. I'll do the best I can to incorporate changes. I feel like this format, most people I think should really enjoy this new format. You get to see what I'm talking about as we're kind of reading it from the presentation or the PowerPoint slides here. So that was a great idea. I came up with that idea, by the way. Anyway, so thank you again for all your support. Thank you for watching the videos. If you want to be alerted when I publish new videos in the future, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. If you enjoy the videos, be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that as well, or a like. And until my next update, everyone, bye-bye.